Rich kids bully a black girl. Big mistake. She carries the blood of a Mafia enforcer. A hush fell over the gleaming hallways of Belgrave Academy, a private high school perched in the lavish hills of Beverly Hills. Beneath glittering chandeliers and pristine marble floors, a storm brewed. Students in immaculate uniforms strutted with a confidence that came from old money and unshakable entitlement. Into this swirl of influence stepped Chiara Jones, an unassuming black girl from Chicago on a special scholarship. She carried her books with quiet determination, oblivious to the sneering gazes and whispered remarks. None of the Academy's wealthy elite realized as they prepared to torment her that Chiara was descended from a former Mafia enforcer. The reckoning had only just begun. Belgrave Academy didn't merely educate, it reigned as a fortress of privilege. Located in the rolling enclaves of Beverly Hills, it boasted manicured lawns, gardens flecked with imported marble statues, and a student parking lot that might pass for a luxury car show. Proudly displayed near the main entrance was a donor plaque listing numerous celebrity and corporate benefactors, among them a nod to Beyoncé for her support of the arts program. That single inscription was enough to convey the school's superstar connections. The campus sprawled over 20 acres, its red-tiled roofs reminiscent of an upscale Mediterranean resort. Majestic palm trees lined a grand driveway that ended in a circular fountain, complete with a rearing bronze stallion at its center, rumored to be a gift from a European royal family. Visitors found it ostentatious, but to those who grew up in this environment, it was routine. From glossy brochures to red carpet charity events, Belgrave presented itself as a utopia of academic brilliance and social grace. Scratch that polished surface, however, and you'd find the unspoken laws of an exclusive society. Those at the pinnacle children of actors, tech magnates, and old money barons dominated the social order. Dissent or difference often met with ostracism or subtle ridicule. Teachers might wince at blatant bullying, but with their livelihoods tethered to high donations, they rarely pressed for true accountability. Within this microcosm of wealth, the scholarship students were tolerated in the same way charity is politely acknowledged. They brought a veneer of diversity to the Academy's glossy brand. Some scholarship kids practically hid in the shadows, longing to blend in and avoid conflict. Others tried to climb the social ladder, aware that success here could open ivy-covered doors later. Few challenged the system outright. Into this swirling complexity stepped 16-year-old Chiara Jones, who had no illusions about Belgrave's power dynamics. She was painfully aware that her acceptance stemmed from a charitable scholarship bestowed by an anonymous sponsor. Growing up in a middle-class enclave of Chicago, she had excelled at her local public school. Word of her academic potential and robust extracurricular record evidently reached someone's ear, securing her a spot at Belgrave. Yet her acceptance letter came with a polite disclaimer. "We expect you to represent our scholarship program with dignity and gratitude." Chiara read between the lines. She was meant to be a success story, a token of philanthropic generosity. Her arrival on campus one crisp Monday morning caused a stir. Most new students might slip in unnoticed, but Chiara's presence was distinctly other. She wore the standard navy and white uniform, without designer modifications. No tailored blazers, no embroidered logos from elite fashion houses. Her hair was braided in simple cornrows, and her only accessory was a silver chain given to her by her father. While some regarded her with blank curiosity, others, especially those who soared atop the social pyramid, didn't bother to hide their sneers. Chiara brushed off the microaggressions. Her expression calm, shoulders poised. She wasn't naive. The tension in the air was palpable, but she'd been raised to handle adversity with unflinching composure. Her father, Dominic "Dom" Jones, had once been an enforcer for a branch of the Italian-American Mafia. He turned his life around to give her a stable upbringing, but the lessons he'd gleaned from that underworld never left him. Those lessons in turn shaped Chiara. Trust your instincts, measure your words, and strike only when necessary. This was not a conventional upbringing, but it made Chiara confident in her ability to survive. Little did she know her resilience would soon be put to the test in ways she couldn't imagine. To outsiders, Dominic Jones might appear an unassuming man in his early 40s, broad shoulders, a firm stride, and a knack for keeping his emotions under tight rein. Yet a faint scar traced across his jaw hinted at a violent past, and his eyes held that unwavering intensity. He seldom spoke of his Mafia days, but the hush of his voice whenever he told cautionary tales was enough for Chiara to understand that the world could be treacherous. Growing up, Chiara heard cryptic comments from neighbors. "Is your dad in security?" or "He seems like someone you don't mess with." After all, Dominic's iron composure and protective aura were tough to miss. Chiara pieced together the details in bits and fragments. Dominic once worked as muscle for an infamous Chicago crime syndicate, collecting debts and scaring off rivals. At some point, Chiara never learned precisely how he decided to leave that life. It was a messy process that involved a bullet wound and a pact with a federal program. Eventually, Dominic settled into a more lawful security business, forging a quiet, steady life for himself and his daughter. Though he'd never wanted Chiara to follow in his footsteps, Dominic instilled in her a certain code. Never start a fight, but never let yourself be crushed. Keep your mind sharp, your senses sharper, and be ready to defend what's yours. That code underpinned Chiara's resolve at Belgrave. She had no wish to brawl with bullies, but if they forced her hand, she wasn't the type to crumble. Her father's shadow loomed over her decisions. At times, she wondered if the scholarship sponsor had discovered Dominic's backstory and felt compelled to offer a better path for his daughter. The invitation letter never clarified. Regardless, Chiara intended to make the most of this high-profile education. She aimed for top grades, forging new opportunities for college and beyond. She vowed not to let the bigoted sneers or the cruelty of Belgrave's elite distract her from that goal. Yet in her heart, she carried a secret comfort. If things ever got truly dangerous, she had a father who understood the language of violence. He was a last resort, a quiet threat in the background. She prayed she'd never have to summon that legacy to protect herself, but the knowledge gave her courage. And so when she walked into Belgrave's courtyard for the first time, she stood tall. Her father's teachings coursed through her veins, and she silently resolved that no amount of wealth or snobbery would subdue her. The young woman from Chicago, with the blood of a Mafia enforcer, was ready to face the gilded battlefield. Word traveled fast at Belgrave Academy. By lunchtime on Chiara's first day, half the students seemed to know her name. A rumor flitted about that she was from some rough Chicago area, that she was a hand-picked charity case, or that she might be related to a hidden celebrity. Gossip was Belgrave's favorite pastime, second only to brandishing wealth. Chiara navigated the cafeteria line, balancing a tray of salad fruit and a bottle of water. Around her, clusters of chic, well-dressed students exchanged hushed remarks. A few turned brazenly, scanning Chiara from head to toe. She pretended not to notice, though her nerves sizzled. She spotted a table at the far corner, where a trio of scholarship kids ate quietly, heads down. Part of her wanted to join them, but she also knew that constant fear of the spotlight would only feed the rumor mill. So she chose an empty table near a window, set her tray down, and pulled out a notebook. The chatter around her ebbed and flowed. She caught snippets. She's from Chicago, maybe she's in a gang. Dad must have connections, or how else would she afford this place? Heard she's super smart, though. Chiara scribbled a to-do list for her classes, trying to drown out the cruelty. Then in the reflection of the window, she noticed a group approaching 3 impeccably styled students, each brandishing the confidence of old money. At the center was a tall blonde with a haughty smirk, Serena Maxwell Blackwood, granddaughter of a British property tycoon. Flanking her were Holly Rivers, a budding influencer with thousands of Instagram followers, and Tristan Roth, known around school as the cunning son of an LA real estate mogul. They stopped by Chiara's table, forming a subtle semicircle. She looked up, greeting them with a polite nod. "Hi, I'm Chiara." Serena toyed with the gold pendant around her neck, arching an eyebrow. "We know. You're the new scholarship student, right? Where exactly in Chicago are you from?" Chiara kept her tone even. South Side, a neighborhood near the University of Chicago. Holly pursed her lips, painted a vibrant pink. "Fun," she drawled. "Does your family still live there?" Chiara sensed an interrogation. "Yes. My dad and I moved here a few months ago." Tristan gave a cold half-smile. "Wow, that must be quite an upgrade. Belgrave compared to, well, anywhere else." Chiara refused to rise to the bait. "It's definitely different. But academically, I'm excited about the challenge." Serena glanced at Holly, then back at Chiara. "Excited. Right." Her tone dripped condescension. "We just thought we'd say hello. Make sure you're settling in okay. Not everyone is so welcoming of outsiders." You know, Chiara read the subtext clearly. "We're the gatekeepers here. And you'd better know your place." She thanked them for the greeting, maintaining a neutral smile. After a moment of silence, they drifted off, chuckling among themselves. A wave of relief hit Chiara. It had been a brief exchange, but in that short confrontation, lines were drawn. She recognized the dynamic from her father's stories, the top dogs sizing up a potential threat or a victim. The rest of the day, she attended classes carefully taking notes, scanning the environment. Some teachers wore forced smiles whenever she asked a question. A few scholarship kids gave her sympathetic looks, but seemed reluctant to engage. Chiara understood forming alliances with a potential target was risky. By the time she left campus, the day had drained her. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "How's the new school?" "All good." She considered lying, but in the end typed back, challenging. "But I can handle it." She always ended her texts to him that way, as if reassuring them both. "I can handle it." In the following weeks, the clique tested Chiara. Their opening jabs were subtle, a snide comment in the hallway, a reserved seat blocking her at the cafeteria table, or pointed stares whenever she tried to speak up in class discussions. Chiara responded politely, or avoided them altogether, refusing to show vulnerability. But inside, an anger simmered. She recognized the pattern. These were microaggressions building into something bigger. One afternoon, she found her locker jammed. After wrestling with the lock, she realized the interior was stuffed with crumpled papers scrawled with hateful messages. "Go back to the slums or you'll never fit in." She swallowed her shock, glancing around the corridor. No one rushed to help. A few passers-by pretended not to notice. Heat pricked behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. This is what they do, rattle your cage and see if you break. She gathered the defaced papers and dumped them in the trash, her expression a mask of calm. But a nerve had been struck. Soon after, rumors spread that Chiara was dangerous, hinting that she had a father with a criminal record. She overheard Serena giggling with Holly. Maybe her dad's in a gang. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Chiara's hand clenched around her textbook. She resisted the urge to lash out. Any public confrontation would feed the clique's narrative that she was unstable, making it easier to ostracize her. Stay calm. Stay strategic, she reminded herself, recalling Dominic's lessons. She did attempt to approach a guidance counselor, Ms. Radcliffe, about the bullying. Radcliffe gave her a sympathetic look, then explained, "We'll look into it, Chiara, but we have no concrete proof of who's responsible." Chiara almost laughed. Of course, there was no concrete proof because the clique specialized in plausible deniability. Each jibe or prank was carefully orchestrated to avoid direct blame. Ms. Radcliffe's powerless shrug said it all. Feeling the tension build, Chiara decided to confide in her father. She explained the notes, the whispers, the orchestrated humiliations. The phone line hummed with Dominic's anger. "Names," he said curtly. "I can pay them a visit." Chiara knew exactly what that implied. She pictured Dominic looming at Belgrave's gates, confronting a bunch of privileged teens, or worse, their equally powerful parents. While the mental image carried a certain grim satisfaction, it would only confirm the rumors and jeopardize her scholarship. She gently refused. "I need to handle this, Dad, within the school. If it gets worse, I'll let you know." Dominic relented, but not before murmuring darkly, "If they cross a line, let me remind them who we are." That line echoed in Chiara's thoughts. Remind them who we are. The realization stung. She carried a legacy that, if unleashed, would terrify them. But was that truly who she wanted to be? She'd promised herself to build a future free of her father's violent past. She wanted to succeed through her intellect, not fear. And yet it was reassuring to know she wasn't defenseless if events took a dangerous turn. The clique, however, showed no sign of relenting. One day, Chiara's gym clothes disappeared, only for her to find them later soaked and tossed in a dumpster behind the cafeteria. Another day, the teacher in her advanced literature course announced that 2 essays had vanished from her desk, Chiara's and one other student's, and suggested they might have been stolen. Chiara suspected sabotage, especially when Serena found the stolen essays crumpled in a bathroom, pinned with a note implicating Chiara. The teacher, to her credit, recognized the oddity and didn't accuse Chiara directly, but an air of suspicion lingered. Still, Chiara endured, focusing on her studies, ignoring the hateful stares. She doubted the clique would simply get bored and move on. They were testing boundaries, seeing how far they could push before she snapped. She intended not to snap. She'd bide her time, gather any shred of evidence, and expose them in a way the school couldn't ignore. "Smart, not loud," Dominic used to say. That would be her guiding mantra. Despite the ugliness, Belgrave wasn't entirely devoid of good souls. Jacob Carlyle, a quiet, brown-haired boy from her chemistry class, offered Chiara a seat next to him in the lab. He was more of an art enthusiast than a typical science buff, but he seemed sincere in his kindness. At first, Chiara wondered if he had an ulterior motive, but as the days passed, Jacob proved he was genuine, a gentle spirit who disliked the clique's tyranny. After a lab session, Jacob walked with her to the main building. "I've seen how they treat you," he murmured, glancing around to ensure no eavesdroppers. "It's awful. I'm sorry." Chiara adjusted her backpack. "Thanks. But I'm handling it." He shoved his hands into his pockets, studying the floor. "I know. You're tough. But they can get really vindictive. If you ever need a witness or someone to back you up, I'm here. My parents aren't as influential as Serena's or Tristan's, but we have enough standing that maybe the school will listen." She paused, touched by his offer. Was he risking his own social position? She'd learned that at Belgrave, standing up for a victim could mark you as a target yourself. She nodded. "I appreciate it." Jacob licked his lips nervously. "Also, I overheard something. Tristan was bragging that he could end you if he wanted. Something about planting evidence or hacking your grades. I don't have proof, but you should be careful." A spike of alarm shot through Chiara. Planting evidence. That could mean anything. Drug stolen property or cheating materials. She pictured the clique smirking as they arranged for her to be caught red-handed with contraband. If the school turned on her, it might cost her scholarship. "Thank you for telling me," she said quietly. Jacob half smiled relief on his face. "I'll keep my ears open. Don't let them rattle you." Chiara recognized a genuine ally. In a school where many cowered or played along with the bullies for self-preservation, Jacob's kindness was a lifeline. She suspected he'd faced his own share of subtle bullying. He wasn't a star athlete or a flashy influencer. He was just a kid who liked painting and architecture. That evening, Chiara mulled over the possibility of the clique framing her. She recalled Dominic's ominous vow to remind them who we are. "I don't want that," she reminded herself. She wanted a clean solution, something that used the system to force accountability. If only she could catch the clique in the act. Ms. Radcliffe had mentioned a lack of concrete proof. Perhaps Chiara needed to gather that proof herself. Chiara's mind churned with plans. She remembered her father's stories about entrapment and evidence how criminals were caught when they grew overconfident, leaving a tangible trail. If the clique intended to frame her, they'd eventually need to place something incriminating in her bag or locker. Perhaps she could set up a trap or hidden camera. Of course, installing a secret camera on campus would be prohibited. If discovered, she'd be in trouble. Yet the risk of being falsely accused of drug possession or theft weighed heavier. She decided it was worth it, so she texted Jacob, who responded with cautious enthusiasm. He knew a tech-savvy acquaintance named Mark, rumored to have built homemade drones and spy gadgets for the robotics club. Mark might be able to help. They met Mark after class in a secluded corner of the library. Mark, a junior, with a mop of curly hair, listened intently as Chiara explained the bullying and potential framing. He frowned. "That's insane. But if you're serious about a hidden camera, I have a micro lens that can be discreetly attached inside a locker. Motion-activated good resolution. Could stream footage straight to a private server." He tapped his laptop bag. "I can do it." Jacob looked anxious. "This is high risk. If the school finds out, we could be punished." Chiara inhaled slowly. "If the clique sets me up for something illegal, I lose my scholarship and possibly my future. I need to protect myself." Mark nodded. "Then let's do it. But we have to be stealthy. Nighttime is best, maybe after the cleaning staff changes shifts, or early morning when it's quiet." They planned a day to slip into the hallway near Chiara's locker, using the partial cover of sunrise. Mark would install the camera with minimal fuss. Jacob would keep watch. If all went well, the camera would capture anyone messing with her locker. With luck, The clique's arrogance would provide the rest. Chiara felt a rare flicker of hope. The clique thrived on secrecy and deniability, but a recorded video left little room for denial. She tried not to think too far ahead. The thought of confronting them publicly and dealing with powerful families made her stomach churn. But with her father's creed echoing in her mind, "Don't show your cards until you must," she was prepared to hold her ground. A week passed in relative normalcy. The clique eased off slightly, busying themselves with school events. Chiara suspected they were just biding their time, planning something major. She kept her head low, finishing assignments and avoiding confrontation. Each day she waited for the perfect window to carry out the camera installation. Finally, one Thursday morning, well before the first bell, Mark, Jacob, and Chiara rendezvoused at the side entrance. The sky was a soft grey, the parking lot nearly empty. Mark wore a backpack filled with tools. They crept inside, hearts pounding, and headed to Chiara's locker. Working swiftly, Mark used a tiny screwdriver to loosen an internal panel. He attached a micro camera near the upper corner, hidden behind a vent. "It's motion sensor," he whispered. "When someone opens the locker, it'll record to an encrypted server. I can watch or download the footage from my phone." He replaced the panel seamlessly. Jacob kept lookout occasionally, texting an all clear. Chiara's pulse throbbed in her ears. She half expected a security guard or teacher to round the corner, but no one came. Within minutes, Mark was done. They quietly slipped out, relieved to have avoided detection. For the camera to matter, Chiara needed the clique to target her locker again. She didn't have to wait long. That very afternoon, Serena tossed Chiara a cold smile in the hallway. "So how's life, still enjoying your free ride?" Chiara offered a neutral shrug. "School's school." Serena's eyes flickered with annoyance, as if expecting a nervous reaction. "Right. We'll see you around." She strolled off with her entourage, leaving Chiara certain something was brewing. Their petty humiliations had slowed, likely, because they were plotting a bigger strike. That night, Chiara texted Jacob, telling him to keep a watchful ear out for rumors. He confirmed that Tristan and others had been whispering about a grand finale. She informed Mark that it might happen soon. They set up notifications so that if the camera recorded something, Mark's phone would ping. Chiara tried to sleep, nerves rattling. When the clique strikes, let them. This time the evidence will be on my side. She clung to that thought like a lifeline. The next few days passed in tense anticipation. Each time Chiara opened her locker, she half expected to find illicit substances or stolen goods. She checked the camera feed daily, nothing. Then, midweek, Jacob caught up with her, breathless. "They're doing it tomorrow," he said, voice low. Tristan was bragging in the art room. "They have some bag of pills or something. He said if you're found with them, you'll be gone by the weekend." Chiara's chest tightened. "Okay," she said, forcibly, calm. "We let them try. We have the camera." "Just be ready," Jacob urged. "They might confront you physically if they sense you're onto them." She nodded, mentally replaying Dominic's self-defense pointers. She didn't want violence, but she wasn't helpless. The next day she arrived early, checking the camera's battery through Mark's phone, still fully charged. She went about her classes as normal, feigning ignorance. Her heart hammered with each passing hour. Finally, the last bell rang. Students poured into the hall, heading for their cars or after-school activities. Chiara lingered in the library under the guise of studying. She texted Mark, "Let me know if the camera triggers." 5 minutes later, Mark replied with a single word, "Recording." Her pulse spiked. "They're at my locker now." She waited 10 minutes, forcing herself to read a paragraph in her textbook to appear nonchalant. Then she gathered her things and walked calmly toward her locker. The corridor was deserted, except for a fleeting glimpse of Serena's back as she disappeared around a corner. Opening the locker, Chiara spotted a small bag stuffed between her books. Her stomach lurched. She carefully pulled it free. A Ziploc filled with white tablets. No label, no brand. Likely ecstasy or some other controlled substance. She took a quick photo with her phone, then sealed the bag in a plain envelope. Mark's camera was still rolling. The trap had been sprung. She texted Jacob. "They did it," he responded. "I'm in the library. We have them on tape." Chiara exhaled. A swirling mix of anxiety and relief coursed through her. She had everything she needed to prove her innocence, the bag of pills, camera footage, and witnesses. She only hoped the school administration would handle it properly. We'll see how they react when money and influence clash with undeniable proof. The following morning, Chiara marched to Principal Pierce's office. Principal Pierce was a middle-aged woman with carefully styled hair and a polite but distant smile. She seemed startled when Chiara requested an urgent meeting. Usually the principal's time was reserved for donors or disciplinary issues. Chiara, never having caused trouble before, was an anomaly. After a moment's hesitation, Pierce ushered her in. "What can I do for you?" "Miss Jones." Chiara carefully placed the envelope on the principal's desk, then pulled out her phone. "These pills were planted in my locker yesterday. I have video evidence of the students responsible." Pierce's smile vanished. "Planted?" she repeated. "What? Who?" Chiara explained succinctly. The bullying, the suspicion that the clique intended to frame her, the hidden camera capturing the act. She showed the footage Mark had sent her, a crystal-clear shot of Tristan opening Chiara's locker, with a small tool, Serena handing him a bag of pills, and Holly glancing nervously down the hall. The principal's face paled as she recognized the individuals involved. By the end, her lips had thinned to a grim line. "This is extremely serious," Pierce managed. "Filming on school grounds without permission is against policy. But so is planting drugs in a student's locker." "Where are the pills now?" Chiara slid the envelope forward. "Here, sealed. I didn't tamper with them. You can test them or hand them over to the police if necessary." Pierce took a shaky breath. Clearly, this threatened to be a massive scandal. Serena Maxwell Blackwood, Tristan Roth, and Holly Rivers were all from families who donated generously. Expelling them might mean losing significant financial backing. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The principal's moral and professional obligations warred with the pragmatic concerns of Belgrave's finances. After a tense silence, Pierce said, "I'll have to call them in, along with their parents, for a formal disciplinary hearing. We need to verify the authenticity of this footage. And, Miss Jones, please understand, this will be a delicate matter. We must follow due process." Chiara nodded, crossing her arms to hide her trembling. "I understand, but this can't be swept under the rug. If you won't act, I'll have to go public with it." Her voice wavered slightly. She was terrified of the consequences, but she refused to back down. Pierce gave a grave nod. "We'll act." She pressed a button on her desk phone. "Hartley, please schedule an emergency meeting with the families of Tristan Roth, Serena Maxwell Blackwood, and Holly Rivers for this afternoon." Chiara let out a slow exhale. It was beginning. One way or another, the truth will come out. Word spread like wildfire through the corridors. Tristan, Serena, and Holly were summoned to an emergency hearing. Their parents arrived in sleek black cars, stepping into the admin building with an imperious air that said, "We own this place." Chiara waited outside the conference room, perched on a bench trying to steady her nerves. Jacob sat beside her, offering quiet support. Inside the room, voices rose. Serena's mother, Lady Maxwell Blackwood, a distinguished older woman with a clipped British accent, demanded to know why her daughter was being interrogated. Tristan's father, Randall Roth, brandished the school's donation records, reminding Principal Pierce of how much his family contributed. Holly's mother quietly threatened that her wealthy influencer connections could tarnish Belgrave's reputation overnight if this was a misunderstanding. Principal Pierce presented the evidence, the sealed bag of pills, the time-stamped locker logs, and finally the video. Tension escalated. The parents gasped, flustered, while Tristan and Serena tried to conjure excuses. They claimed the footage was faked or that they were set up, but the clarity of the video was indisputable. Anyone with eyes could see Tristan unlocking Chiara's locker and placing the contraband inside. Chiara was eventually called in. She faced a barrage of pointed questions from parents. "Why would our children do this?" they asked. "How do we know you didn't plant it yourself?" they challenged. She spoke calmly, hands clasped in her lap. "They targeted me for weeks. I'd heard they planned to frame me, so I took precautions to film it. If you doubt the footage's authenticity, test the hidden camera yourself. Or speak to Mark from the robotics club. Everything is real." Principal Pierce cleared her throat. "Given the seriousness, I propose immediate suspension for Tristan, Serena, and Holly, pending further investigation. The use or distribution of illegal substances on school grounds may also involve law enforcement. We have no choice but to contact local authorities." The uproar was instantaneous. Lady Maxwell Blackwood threatened a lawsuit. Randall Roth demanded Pierce's resignation. Holly's mother insisted that her daughter was an innocent bystander, but the principal stood firm somewhat to Chiara's surprise. Perhaps it was the bulletproof nature of the evidence, or maybe Pierce felt a moral imperative that overshadowed the potential financial fallout. As the confrontation ended, Chiara exited the building to find the sun shining on the manicured lawns. The clique members and their parents stormed past her, sneering, their fury tangible. A mixture of fear and triumph pulsed through Chiara. She had swung a wrecking ball into Belgrave's comfortable hierarchy. Now she braced for the storm that would follow. In the wake of the hearing, Belgrave Academy buzzed with rumors. Some students gawked at Chiara as though she'd pulled off a heist. Others whispered that Tristan, Serena, and Holly would never truly be punished because their families had too much power. Yet official statements trickled out. The trio was suspended, the police had been notified to analyze the pills, and the school board was reviewing the case. The sensational nature of it all overshadowed daily classes. Meanwhile, Chiara felt the social climate shift around her. Many scholarship students regarded her with awe, as if she were a hero who'd struck back at her tormentors. Others feared standing too close to the crossfire. A few wealthy kids glowered openly, blaming her for ruining their friends' lives. Jacob stuck by her side, but she sensed his anxiety. "I never thought it would go this far," he admitted. "I hope they don't retaliate." Retaliation seemed likely given the clique's furious exit from the hearing. Chiara found herself jumping at shadows, especially when a sleek black SUV lingered outside the school gates on multiple occasions. She could almost feel Tristan's hatred, like a physical presence. One day after staying late in the library, she walked to the bus stop alone. A tinted window sedan slowed down beside her, revved its engine menacingly, then sped off. Was it her imagination, or had she glimpsed Tristan's face behind the glass? Her heart pounded. "Don't let fear consume you," she repeated internally. "They want you scared." Nevertheless, she called Dominic, voice trembling. "Dad, they might be following me." Dominic's anger simmered through the phone. "You sure you don't want me involved?" Chiara wrestled with conflicting feelings. Part of her yearned for her father's protective shield, knowing how capable he was. Another part insisted on handling it through legitimate channels. "Not yet," she whispered. "I don't want violence, Dad." "I'd just be ready. Okay?" He agreed, telling her to watch her back and warning. "If they come for you, all bets are off." Despite the evidence, Chiara learned that wealthy families rarely capitulate without a fight. Serena's mother hired a high-profile attorney who argued that the pills might be vitamins or plant-based supplements, not illegal substances. Tristan's father threatened to retract all future donations if the school didn't reinstate his son. Holly's mother unleashed a social media campaign, framing Holly as an innocent victim. Belgrave's board members, many of them personally acquainted with these families, were caught in a vice. Principal Pierce, to her credit, kept Chiara in the loop. "We've tested the pills," she said. "They contain amphetamines and MDMA. It's definitely illegal." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "The board is pressuring me to handle this quietly. They fear a scandal might harm our reputation and our funding." Chiara's stomach twisted. She realized she could be playing a dangerous game if the board caved. The clique might return emboldened. "What about the police?" Pierce pursed her lips. "They have the evidence. As of now, it's in the preliminary investigation stage. But I suspect the families will use every resource to keep criminal charges off their children's records. Even so, Belgrave must protect you, Chiara. Whatever settlement or arrangement is made, I promise you won't be penalized." Chiara thanked her, relieved and wary. She had no illusions about the power of hush money or political favors. The question was, would the clique's families force a cover-up, or would actual justice be served? She considered going to the press, but that carried enormous risks. She wasn't sure she wanted to become a poster child for systemic bullying, nor did she relish the idea of her father's violent past being dragged into the spotlight. At home, she confided in Dominic again. He listened quietly, then said, "Sometimes powerful people settle disputes behind closed doors. Don't be surprised if they offer you something to keep quiet." Chiara grimaced at the idea of hush money. She wanted genuine accountability, not a payoff. Dominic read her expression. "You're doing the right thing. Just don't let them corner you. If they do call me," his voice lowered, "I'm done letting people push us around." Those words pulsed in Chiara's mind. "I'm done letting people push us around." She realized how deeply her father's experiences ran. He'd once been trapped in an underworld of violence, and the cost of leaving was enormous, but he'd done it to give her a chance at a normal life. Now that normal life was threatened by the entitlement of the rich, she felt a surge of protective fury for her father's sacrifices for her own future. Weeks dragged on with no final resolution. Tristan, Serena, and Holly remained suspended. Chiara tried to focus on her classes and upcoming midterms. Sometimes she glimpsed Tristan near campus in the late afternoon, just outside the gates, as if waiting for her. He never approached directly, but his silent presence was unnerving. She reported it to Principal Pierce, who reminded him via email that suspended students weren't allowed on school grounds. Meanwhile, rumors circulated that the Maxwell Blackwood family was negotiating with the board to quietly withdraw Serena, sending her to a Swiss finishing school. Tristan's father supposedly threatened a massive lawsuit unless the official record of his son's wrongdoing was scrubbed. Holly's mother posted cryptic Instagram stories about defamation and fake evidence. None of these developments changed the fact that Chiara had risked everything to stand up for herself, and she refused to recant her allegations. For the first time, though, she noticed a new respect from her peers. Some openly praised her bravery. A few scholarship students mustered the courage to share their own tales of bullying. Even some wealthier kids admitted the clique's reign had been toxic for everyone. Jacob commented that the entire atmosphere felt lighter without Serena's daily sneers. Yet a dark cloud loomed, because it wasn't over. Everyone sensed a final reckoning approached. One late afternoon, Chiara was packing up her locker when the overhead lights flickered. The hallway was nearly empty. She heard footsteps turned and froze. Tristan stood there, face etched with fury. He wore a hoodie pulled low over his brow. You had to ruin everything, he hissed. Serena's being shipped off. Holly's brand deals are in jeopardy. My father's being harassed by by reporters. And all because of you. Chiara's hand tightened on her phone. All because you tried to destroy me, she retorted, voice steady despite her pounding heart. He stepped closer, breathing heavily. She caught the faint smell of cologne mixed with desperation. You're proud of yourself, humiliating us. His eyes glinted with malice. You think you're safe? I could. Chiara squared her shoulders. What hurt me physically? That'll just confirm everything I said. The cameras are everywhere, Tristan. Plus the school knows you're not supposed to be here. Go ahead. Try something. He let out a ragged laugh, but she saw the uncertainty in his gaze. You're not the only one who can gather evidence. Maybe I'll find something on you or your father. Heard he's no angel. Chiara's stomach twisted. She knew Dominic's criminal record had been sealed after he cooperated with the feds. But if Tristan's family had enough resources, they might uncover old news clippings or partial truths. So that's the next tactic, dig up dirt. Smear me. She refused to show fear. You won't find anything relevant. And even if you did, it doesn't excuse your crime. They locked eyes for a tense moment. Then from behind, footsteps echoed as a staff member approached. Tristan jerked away, turning to vanish down a side corridor. Chiara's legs wobbled as she exhaled. He's not done, she realized grimly. I might have won the battle, but not the war. The board's final decision came one crisp Friday morning. Principal Pierce announced in an all-school memo that Tristan Roth, Serena Maxwell Blackwood, and Holly Rivers were to be expelled from Belgrave Academy for gross misconduct, specifically planting controlled substances with the intent to harm a fellow student. The local police, after verifying the test results of the pills, added potential charges to the trio's records. Though none were sent to juvenile detention, the families, as rumored, reached private settlements with the school, but the official stance was unwavering. They were no longer welcome at Belgrave. The news spread like wildfire. Gasps, whispers, and relieved murmurs filled every hallway. A hush seemed to fall over the once dominant clique's hangouts, now deserted. Many cheered quietly for Chiara's triumph. Others reeled from the shock that wealth hadn't bought them freedom from consequences. The environment felt transformed, less stifling, more open. Scholarship students walked with renewed confidence. Even teachers, emboldened by the administration's show of integrity, addressed bullying more directly in class. Jacob found Chiara by the lockers, beaming. "It's done. They're gone." She nodded, breathing out a tension-laden sigh. "I'm still worried about the aftermath, but yes, at least they can't attack me here anymore." A swirl of relief and triumph coursed through her. She never wanted to be the center of a scandal, but she took solace in having exposed injustice. The system had, in its own messy way, worked. For a week she felt the sweetness of peace. No threatening texts, no black SUV. She began focusing fully on her studies, forging friendships with other students who admired her courage. Teachers who once gave her guarded looks now applauded her determination. Principal Pierce quietly congratulated her, expressing relief that Belgrave's moral compass wasn't entirely lost. Then one evening, as Chiara left a volunteer tutoring session, she heard footsteps behind her in the dim parking lot. Her father's warnings flared in her mind. She spun around, adrenaline pounding, only to see a hooded figure, Tristan, again. She cursed under her breath. How had he gotten onto campus grounds? He approached face-shadowed shoulders, trembling. "You think you've won?" he spat. "My father's empire is bigger than this school. You'll see. We're not finished." Chiara's heart thundered. She clenched her fists. "Leave me alone. You have no right to be here." He stepped closer, eyes wild. "You destroyed my future. You and your stupid camera. My dad lost major deals. My life is wrecked. All for what? Because you couldn't stay in your lane. You're just some nobody from Chicago," who she didn't let him finish. Her father's voice rang in her ears. "If you must fight, fight decisively." She cut him off with a sharp front kick to his shin, followed by a swift push that sent him staggering backward. He stumbled, arms flailing, shock etched on his face. What the Chiara glared. "You laid hands on my future first by planting drugs. You threatened me." "I'm not helpless, Tristan." He recovered fury, blazing, and lunged, but Chiara had studied enough self-defense to sidestep him. She remembered the cardinal rule: distance is your ally. She evaded his grasp, then delivered another controlled strike to his midsection, winding him. He crumpled to his knees, gasping. She stood over him, breath-ragged eyes blazing. "We're done here. If you ever come near me again, you'll face more than a broken ego. And if that's not enough, my father will handle it." The echo of Dominic's training made her voice ring with steel. For a moment, Tristan just coughed, trying to catch his breath. Then he spat on the ground in rage. "You'll regret this." Chiara stepped back. "No, I won't." "You will." She turned and hurried away, adrenaline surging. Each footstep rang with finality. The line had been crossed and she'd defended herself. No cameras, no cunning plans, just raw survival. Behind her, Tristan eventually stumbled off into the darkness. The next day he was nowhere to be seen, and rumors suggested his father had sent him overseas for rehabilitation. Whether that was true, she never confirmed. All she knew was he didn't plague her again. With the clique's departure, Belgrave Academy blossomed. Students who once cowered under the clique's scorn discovered the courage to pursue their interests openly. The school implemented stricter anti-bullying policies. Teachers, perhaps, still uneasy about nearly losing their moral high ground, became more attentive to social dynamics. A wave of supportive clubs emerged, peer mentorship, community outreach, even a group dedicated to bridging socio-economic divides. Chiara found herself at the heart of many of these initiatives, volunteering time to tutor younger students and speaking up at panel discussions about fostering inclusion. Principal Pierce discreetly thanked her one afternoon. "Your actions forced us to face a glaring issue, Chiara. I'm sorry you had to endure so much. I wish we'd intervened sooner." Chiara gave a small smile. "It's okay. Better now than never." Though she felt relief, a part of her remained watchful. She knew that money and grudges lingered outside the school's walls. Tristan's father might attempt a vendetta, or Serena's mother might sue for defamation. But in the day-to-day life of Belgrave, Chiara no longer felt suffocated by fear. She thrived academically, acing tests, joining the debate team, and networking with new friends. Jacob Mark and others who had stood by her became a close circle, bound by shared trials. Occasionally late at night, she'd rehash the moment she kicked Tristan. A swirl of guilt, satisfaction, and relief flickered within her. Had she stooped to violence? Perhaps. But in that instant, she'd protected herself from someone who refused to respect the boundaries that law and reason demanded. If Dominic was disappointed, he never said so. When she told him the story, he just nodded grimly. "Sometimes you have to handle business directly," he said. "You did what you had to." Months rolled by, leading to the semester's end. Chiara's transformation from anxious newcomer to respected student was palpable. The scholarship that once felt like a precarious lifeline became a platform for her ambitions. Teachers praised her drive, recommending her for advanced programs. Her father beamed with pride whenever they spoke on the phone. She felt closer to him, realizing how his past struggles had tempered him into a man who valued second chances, chances he'd now passed on to her. On the last day of the school year, Belgrave held an awards assembly. To her surprise, Chiara received a leadership citation for exemplary resilience and contribution to positive campus culture. As she walked onto the stage, applause thundered. She looked across the auditorium, seeing not just the sea of privileged faces, but also the scholarship kids, who now stood taller because of her example. Jacob Mark and a cluster of others cheered loudly, grinning with shared triumph. She accepted the certificate, heart swelling. A flicker of memory crossed her mind. That first day, sitting alone with her lunch tray, locked in a silent standoff with Serena and Tristan. So much had changed. She'd fought back and won. But more importantly, she'd proven that even in a bastion of wealth, truth and courage could prevail. That evening, as she and her father celebrated with a modest dinner at a local restaurant, Dominic lifted his glass of lemonade in a toast. "To you, Chi. You did what I never quite could, beat the system from within. I'm proud of you." She clinked her glass against his tears of gratitude, burning her eyes. In that moment, Chiara understood that the Mafia blood in her wasn't a curse, nor something to flaunt. It was a part of her legacy, a wellspring of resilience. She could wield that strength without succumbing to violence or corruption. If the clique had taught her anything, it was that real power came from a steadfast heart, a quick mind, and the resolve to stand up when no one else would. Belgrave Academy had tested her in ways she never imagined. She emerged stronger, forging her own path. Though her father's past cast a long shadow, she found a way to let it guide her without defining her. And in doing so, she reminded everyone at Belgrave that money might buy many things, but it could not guarantee immunity from consequences. Confronting wealth-fueled cruelty often feels like an impossible battle. Yet Chiara Jones proved that even in a fortress of privilege, justice can break through. She arrived at Belgrave Academy as a scholarship student, targeted by a ruthless clique who believed their money made them untouchable. They never guessed she carried the grit inherited from a father once known as a formidable Mafia enforcer, a legacy of courage and resolve. By calmly gathering evidence and standing her ground, Chiara dismantled their reign of terror, transforming the school's culture and reminding everyone that truth can triumph over intimidation. If her powerful story moved, you make your voice heard. Click the like button. Share this video with friends who need inspiration and subscribe to this channel for more tales of resilience. Every time we stand against bullying and injustice, we prove that no dynasty of wealth can suppress those who refuse to yield. Keep believing in your own strength, and remember, sometimes a single act of courage can change everything.